Welcome to Red-tastic. Story 1. My sister, 28 female, and I, 25 male, earn around the same amount and we live in the same area. The thing is, she is truly terrible with money, has a huge amount of debt on a flashy car, constantly maxed out clothing store accounts. God only knows how much credit card debt. She also spends a ton of money on eating out, drinking, buying tickets for expensive shows, etc. There have been many months in which she could not pay her bills. I've lent her a crazy amount of money ever since I started working, around 3.5 years now. I say lent because I've never seen a cent of it again. I know that she has also borrowed money from a lot of our friends and family, who she subsequently avoided and never paid back either. Anyway, towards the end of last month, I got a call from her, asking me for some money because she was short on some of her bills. I had had an expensive month myself. Some work needed to be done on my car. I had bought myself some computer-related stuff and a couple other small expenses. I told her no, I didn't have free cash floating around, which was true. She was irritated and kept sarcastically asking if I really couldn't spare the money she wanted, which was $100. So the next day she calls again, this time asking if I could please just lend her $50 instead, since it's only a few things she needs help with. Again, I said no, and this time she started swearing at me and saying that I was being cruel to her for no reason. After ending the call, I got a text from one of my sister's friends. She told me that I was being horrible to my sister since she apparently needed the money for food. According to the friend, my sister had last eaten 2 days earlier and was desperately hungry. I thanked her for telling me this and decided to wait for my sister to call again. She did, the next day, this time asking for $20. I asked her to drop the bullshit and tell me exactly what she wanted the money for. She rambled about how she just needed to settle the last bit of her cell phone bill. I said no and cut the call. Again, her friend texted me asking, "What the F is wrong with me? How could I be so cruel to my sister?" She said that my sister had called her and broke down crying, saying that it was now her 3rd day without a proper meal and she didn't want to go another night without eating. Well, the next day, I got another call from a cousin of ours, whom I trust very much. She told me that she was really worried about my sister because she had visited them the night before, crying. She had told them that she was starving and I had refused to help her. According to the cousin, she looked so weak and exhausted that she could barely walk. The cousin gave her something to eat, which she apparently gobbled down, and she left, after crying again because she couldn't believe that I refused to help her. I have not heard from her since this happened. No texting, calling, or anything. OP, you're not the a-hole. Your sister needs to learn to make better decisions and be financially wise. You cannot be responsible for taking on supporting her non-stop, especially if you both earn around the same amount of money. You have things to do with your money too. Next time, let her know that she is welcome to come over, have dinner or get some food, but you do not owe her constantly supporting her finances. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole. I mean, why can't the friend lend her money if she is feeling so sorry for her? Why does it have to be you? Why also not the cousins? And she lost her chance of empathy when she started cursing you after you said no. That's not how it works if you were in need, and if you knew you effed up, and if your brother has already helped you so much for the last 3 years, and other people too. So desperate for food, she can sell something? You said she has lots of flashy stuff. You can still take the high road and buy her groceries for a week, but otherwise, F that. Not the a-hole. If these people are so concerned, why can't they lend her money? This sounds strange. Also, if she's this hard up and has all those luxury items, couldn't she easily sell them? Not the a-hole. Your sister is actively lying to you. Not to mention, I doubt she has literally no food in the house. I've been in that scenario. If you're going to ask someone to help you get food, you ask them to take you grocery shopping. Story 2. I know I'm an asshole for part of the situation, but I need some help with the resolution. Background. Wife and I have been together 5 years, married for 3. Last year, we moved 10 minutes away from our parents. Since then, my mother-in-law has been coming to ours 3 to 4 times every week. Mother-in-law is a difficult woman. She's very traditional and conservative and very vocal about her opinions. Despite claiming she's tolerant of everyone, she says a lot of un-PC things. Example, in the same sentence, she will say she has no problem with homosexuality, then call gay people fags. I've called her out in the past but gotten nowhere. For the last 15 months, she's been coming over multiple times a week and driving me insane. When she comes over, she completely dominates the house, kicks me out of rooms, makes me change the TV, or has extremely loud conversations with my wife about how much she hates father-in-law. She gets away with all of this because she's the guest and we must be accommodating of guests. Bullshit in my opinion, but it's hard to fight against her, and my wife won't argue with her either. We have discussed this before, but I've never managed to make any headway. Current situation. Mother-in-law was at our house this weekend. I was watching a show I was really interested in, and she marched in telling me to switch off the TV because she and my wife wanted to sit and chat in here. I told her no, I have had a long, hard week. I want to relax and I'm really interested in watching this. My wife suggested that they watch with me. Mother-in-law then proceeds to comment constantly throughout the show. Ads come on, and there's an advert for some documentary about the porn industry, which sends mother-in-law on a tirade about the disgusting and depraved things these people do. She kept going after the show had started again. I asked her to please stop. She told me it was rude to interrupt her. I had had enough, so I got up and said I was going for a walk. Mother-in-law says, "Good, maybe we can finally have an actual conversation without inappropriate interruptions," referring to the porn advert. I just saw red and snapped. Maybe if you did some of those depraved and inappropriate sex acts, you wouldn't be such a miserable old cow and your marriage wouldn't be falling apart. I walked out before anyone else could do anything. I came home in the evening and obviously mother-in-law is pissed, as is my wife. I told her I know I messed up with what I said. It was out of line and I will apologize. If we can acknowledge that this outburst didn't come from nowhere and put some changes in place. 1. Mother-in-law needs to stop coming over so often, 2 times a week max. Number 2. She needs to treat me better, no more kicking me out of rooms, etc. Number 3. No more hateful speeches about things she doesn't agree with. If she can't be civil about a conversational topic, then we should just avoid it. If we can all agree to these terms, I will apologize. My wife says this is unacceptable and that what I said was so disgusting that I have no right to ask for anything and need to just straight up apologize. Am I the a-hole? Edit. A few of you have made comments about not dealing with the situation before it got to this point. It's hard to fit all the information in the original post with only 3,000 characters. So I will add now what I've said in the past and how it's been met with my wife and mother-in-law. In regards to her coming over, I have suggested: Number 1. Reducing the number of visits. The response: mother-daughter bonding is so important that I can't control how much time they spend together. Number 2. Going to mother-in-law's house instead. Response: mother-in-law needs time away from father-in-law. Number 3. Sitting in the kitchen. Response: not comfortable enough. Number 4. Waiting until I'm busy with other things. Response: it's unfair for my schedule to dictate what they want to do. Number 5. Going out together. Response: too expensive. When trying to confront offensive comments from mother-in-law, her responses are generally that I shouldn't police what she says or I'm being too sensitive, and my wife will just tell me that it's a generational thing and she doesn't really mean it. To the person who asked exactly how they are kicking me out, they don't physically take the remote, but if I don't leave, mother-in-law will make me as uncomfortable as possible until I don't want to stay, being very loud, snide comments, etc. Basically, how the situation unfolded, except I usually just leave before it gets as bad as it did this time. The only reason I suggested holding the apology hostage was to give me some power behind my requests. As I've said, I have tried in the past and been ignored. I thought if there was something at stake, I may get taken more seriously. Unfortunately, this idea seems to make me the a-hole, but I'm not sure how to proceed from here. If I apologize, then ask for change, I'm certain I will be met with the same answers as always. My wife won't even entertain the idea of counseling. OP, you should apologize to your mother-in-law. Your words were very offensive. Besides, this isn't a problem with your mother-in-law. This is a problem with your wife. Your wife needs to do better. If you tell her something upsets you, she shouldn't brush it off. She should find a solution or meet you halfway. That is, telling her mother not to talk about controversial topics when you're around because it upsets you. You two should work together to draw boundaries. So I advise counseling. Your wife needs to acknowledge that something is wrong. Then you can find a solution to the problem. Now for some comments. Not the a-hole, obviously. And I'm sorry your mother-in-law is so shitty, but also, moving so close to her was the first mistake. Maybe you should consider putting physical distance between her and you. She sounds narcissistic, and those people rarely respect boundaries until they have no choice. Yeah, I hate when Reddit advocates breaking up, but it looks like this is where their marriage is heading. I hope they can do counseling together and work it out. But personally, I would have a time limit on such a situation. I don't know what the limit is, but that wouldn't be my life if I could help it. The wife can't just ignore her husband's feelings like that. He handled it poorly, but it looks like he had tried it all and has gotten dismissed every time. Not the a-hole, but I hate to break it to you, but if what you wrote is true, you've gotten caught up in a very unfortunate and unhealthy marriage dynamic that you need to address with your wife. Story 3. So, backstory. I'm Indian, 27 male. My parents are Indian, and my fiancé is Indian, 25 female. The wedding will be traditional, and as all Indian weddings quickly become costly. Her parents are backing her up financially and paying for their part of the wedding, roughly 50%. My parents, who are pretty well off, won't help me at all. Traditionally, in Indian weddings, parents usually contribute. It's part of the culture, where the bride and groom are officially independent from their parents. Which makes me a little bitter, since I would rather spend that money towards paying down my apartment. They know this, and they know the cultural implications. They both had their weddings paid for, but they are just too cheap to spend any money. Anyways, I can't change this, and I don't wish to either. It's none of my business. Now, my parents want to arrange the wedding in the sense that they want to control who I invite, where it will happen, etc. My mom, who easily falls out with people, had an argument with her brother and they aren't on talking terms. I have told her I want to invite him since I have a good relationship with him growing up and would want nothing more than to see him on our big day. This didn't fall on good terms with my mother and a huge argument broke out. Right now, I'm debating whether I should just do whatever I want, regardless of what they wish. I'm considering not making them a part of this wedding other than just guests. This will cause a little uproar and I might get a few remarks from some relatives, but frankly, I don't care. OP, you are not the a-hole. Your parents want to avoid part of the culture that involves them paying up for the wedding, but don't want to adhere to the part of the culture that allows them to make decisions. They can't have it both ways. Either they respect the culture, all of it, or they don't. They don't get to pick and choose the bits that benefit themselves and then throw a tantrum because you want to decide who to invite to your wedding that you're paying for.